What up with you guys? You know who it is. It's your boy, John Mike, and I am here. Today, we're going to be doing the Gospel Producers Hangout. I got my mans, Delevante from Atlanta. He's in here doing his thing. Y'all give it up for him. Yo, we hanging out today. We got some topics, some different things that's been going on here in the audio industry for the last week or so. So we're gonna try to talk about those things, man. How you feeling, bro? How you feeling, man?
I'm feeling good, man. I'm feeling good. I got my coffee right over here, man.
Yes,
we got audio working, we got video working, so I'm feeling good, man.
Yeah, man. We was talking about this earlier. People just don't know like what it takes to put something like this together, just to talk for like 30 or 40 minutes online, just to make what we got out, because we can't be like normal people. You know, we got to be out here crispy. We got to be out here with some nice video optics and stuff like that. The audio got to be clean and clear. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, man. I'm excited, man, about hanging out today and just, rapping through some of these topics, man. So first thing I want to kind of jump into is there's been a couple of updates with some really with some of our top softwares. I think Studio One 6 dropped this week, and then Pro Tools 22.9 here that they dropped.
Yeah, 22.9.
22.9.
And actually we on I saw it happen in my account later that day, or maybe the day after, but we're on 22.9.1 now, I believe.
Oh, wow.
So I think they went in and fixed something that got messed up. So yeah.
Cool. So what you think about the new Pro? Because you're the Pro Tools head. You're like Pro Tools tech support. Whenever I have issues with Pro Tools, you're the guy that I call to help me get out of the mud when I get stuck. So what you think about the new update, bro?
Man, I'm digging the new update, man. It's been a great update. The big highlight was the Melodyne support. So now they have Aura 2, which works with Melodyne. And so now instead of having to drop Melodyne on your track, you can now just use it right in there. It's a part of the software, and everybody all the way down to artists is able to use that, and they give you if you don't have Melodyne, you actually get a copy of Melodyne with your subscription. So that's a really dope feature. And then the second thing that nobody really knew about until they released it was the Aux Io, which is so cool for people like me that are running ACX systems, because now we don't have to use third-party softwares like Source Nexus or Black Hole to route audio in and out of Pro Tools. Because, with an HDX card, as soon as you open Pro Tools, your ACX card is locked to Pro Tools. So all your I.O. is for Pro Tools and Pro Tools only. You cannot go to Zoom. You can't do none of this kind of stuff that we're doing right now, doing a video call while you have Pro Tools open. So now they have implemented these Aux IOs, and what it does is they have created some tracks. Matter of fact, I can actually show you right here. We have you can see this Pro Tools Audio Bridge. So now we have Audio Bridge 2A, 2B. So those are two channels, two versions, and then you have a 16 channel, 32 channel, 64 channel, a 6 channel. I thought there was an 8 channel too somewhere, but maybe it's just 6. But yeah, man. So what that does is now you can literally route audio in and out of Pro Tools without having to do anything crazy. So we don't need loopback or none of that stuff. So if I want to be in Logic and I'm producing a track, but I want that audio to flow into Pro Tools, easy peasy. Just use the Pro Tools Audio Bridge, send 2 tracks over to Pro Tools, bam, we good.
Yo, that's crazy, bro. So that's nuts. I think that's a huge update. Like, I think for any DAW, I think all DAWs should do that at some point. So I think that's really cool. Like you say, you can be in Pro Tools, you can be in any DAW, you can be in Ableton, you can be in Cubase, you can stream out. So it's backwards. It's backwards. So it doesn't have to necessarily be Pro Tools sending audio to other places. Logic, if I'm understanding correctly,
it can go either way, man. Like, it can go any direction, and then we can take the Zoom call and put the Zoom call in, so you can actually remote recording now. Like, again,
that's dope.
You don't necessarily need a third-party plug-in for remote recording. Obviously the benefit of some of those is that they're winning on the fact that they've been a way to do away with some of the nuances that we have with Zoom. Sometimes you get that all that chirpy audio, but honestly, I think you're gonna get that regardless. If you're over the internet, like that's just a part of the internet. So latency. I don't think it's ever gonna be like super super crispy. At least not right now. I think we some years.
I think we're gonna get there years in years, a few years in the next 5 years. I think with 5G and internet connections, like I'm on AT&T fiber now.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah.
I get a gig upload and a gig download. You know what I'm saying? And now I just got an email like some weeks ago saying that I could upgrade to up to 5 gigs up, 5 gigs down. You know, on my plan if I wanted to. So I'd imagine that there wouldn't be too much latency if you on a 5G up, 5G down, like, and we're not talking about 5G, the radio wireless that's in our phones. We're talking about 5G, like literal 5 gigabits per second, which is like insane. That's like instantly fast.
Yeah, that's bananas. Like that's the stuff like that I was seeing 10 or so years ago in post facilities that had fiber connections, but you had to be like in the city and they spent a ton of money to get those fiber connections in those buildings. And so now that you can, be in the suburbs and have your studio and still getting those types of connections, I think that's definitely outstanding. So I agree with you. We're not too far out from that. Somebody's gonna figure out how to get that. But it's dope to be able to do that, man, for sure.
That's super dope.
What about Studio One though? What's up with that?
Yeah. Now one thing different between Pro Tools, they did not add the ARA2 support, I believe. We'll see how well that ages it. They could probably release it next week. But I know I was playing around with it the other day, and I was trying to get use Isotope RX10 to fix a lead vocal that I was mastering. I was trying to like move the lead vocal up or down a little bit, whatever direction I was trying to do. And I pulled up the music rebalance thing, and it wouldn't do anything, man. Like it said the ARA2 was not supported. So I was in Studio One, so that's a big bummer. But they added in some dope stuff. Smart templates is really, really cool. Like when you can drop in the master files, like I was doing a master of like 2 or 3 tracks, and so I was able to like drag those tracks straight into the template before I hit create project, and then it lays everything out for me. So that's pretty dope. The lyric track is kind of like their big game changing, super feature that they added in the video track. So they're really coming out the content creators track. And the other things I think they kind of borrowed from other DAWs like track presets, the de-esser. We finally got it. It's crazy to think Studio One has been out for like 10 years. And we're just now getting a de-esser.
But though, like the Studio Live console doesn't have a de-esser. That's one of the things I can't stand about that board. Anytime I have to use it in a live environment, is there's no de-esser. So that's something with PreSonus. They got something against de-essers, I think.
I don't know. You would think as simple as a de-esser is, in terms of function, that is something they could have built in. But they also did the Pro Q 3 update. We came from Pro Q2, not Pro Q, Pro EQ.
Okay,
that's the stock EQ in Studio One.
Subtle naming there, huh?
Subtle naming, but Pro Q. So it's Pro EQ2. They went from Pro EQ2 to Pro EQ3, and speaking of like subtle naming and subtle features, they added in the dynamic function to the bands now. So now I can do multi-band. It's a dynamic EQ. I got threshold, I got compression controls on all of my bands now, and they finally
after Pro Q for sure with that.
They definitely did, and the ability to solo the bands. Like I can solo the mid, the highs, whatever band I'm on. I can now finally hit the solo button on the bands and really isolate those just like you can in Pro Q. You know what I'm saying? So I think that's really, really dope for being like a stock EQ, for it to be, you know, that's the stock. That's what you get stock. So like if you're just getting into producing, mixing, whatever the case may be, and you're opening up this DAW, it's going to be pretty comprehensive with, you know, stock plugins like that. You wouldn't have to go buy a Pro Q3 or by Fab Filter or what have you, because you got that built into the stock EQ that comes with this. So that's pretty dope. But I did a video on it.
Honestly, like the Pro Q is transparent. Like it's probably right on par with your stock EQ. You could probably null them things out very easily. So that's a strong built-in plugin for sure.
Yeah, definitely. And I did a video on it the other day when it dropped, just to kind of, and I'll link it down in the description, all that stuff like that. But it's pretty dope. But most of the feedback that I've gotten from people is that it didn't really feel like it was justified as a full next number update. You know, like from 5 to 6, it felt like a point update because we only got a handful of, you know,
new things.
We only got like 2 or 3 things that really they gave it a different, you know, scheme and all that stuff like that. They gave it a, you know, updated some of the GUI and they added in some little things, but it didn't move the needle for a lot of people, because a lot of the comments I've been seeing, like they didn't put in Dolby Atmos, like that didn't come in, and most people were expecting, okay, we're moving from 5 to 6, we're gonna see, this is the time where we're gonna see Dolby Atmos support in Studio One finally. And as a mix engineer and producer, but more so as a mix, you know, for stuff that I mix, like if I'm working in Studio One, knowing that I got Dolby Atmos support, and if I wanted to create me a 5.1 or a 7.1 scheme, you know what I'm saying, I could do that and have that support, but they didn't put it in. And then the ARA2 support didn't come in, and a handful of other things that people were expecting. So I think it's cool. I like it. I'll rock with it. The features are really cool. The lyric track I think is pretty dope. I can see some applications for that where cats can probably jump in and use that, because I have, like, you know, some people call it a confidence monitor. You know, I have that in my booth.
Church.
Yeah, church. Doesn't get that from church, but I got that in my vocal booth, and so I've had people to come over and they would you know send the lyrics. I put them up on the screen while they, you know, on the monitor while they sing. So the fact that you can actually sync the lyrics, actually sync to the track itself, you know what I'm saying, which I think is pretty dope, because, you know what I mean, like, that gives it almost like a karaoke vibe, you know what I mean?
Right.
When they're in there, because it goes through and it actually, so if you got the verses and your chorus, but the other thing, the con to that, the flip side to that might cause trouble when you're talking about using that in a session. The problem I can see with that is like the setup time, you know what I'm saying? Like, cause that means, and if I don't get the lyrics ahead of time, you know, if I want to do the syncing, now I could probably it gives you like a notepad where you could just throw it up on the screen.
Just throw it up, yeah.
But if I want to make it like all fancy and sync it and do the karaoke, it's not an automatic thing. I got to go in there and set up where the verses are, where the choruses are, and we all know how time conscious it is when you're working in the session. Time literally is money, you know what I'm saying? So you got to be conscious of that, like, and you don't need to be in there trying in the session fiddling around trying.
That definitely sounds like a pre-session type setup thing, because like, even, you know, in my world of audio post-production, we do, you know, ADR where the actors have to come in and re-record some of their lines, and so all of that prep work is done before they step foot into the room. Like, we already have markers for which scenes, which lines, where they are in the session. All that kind of stuff is set up beforehand, because there's no way. I mean, there's some programs that can do that stuff a little bit faster, but it's still like, if you can not have to do that stuff in a session, you don't want to do that stuff in a session. It's no different than setting up a microphone when the person arrives. Like if you know a singer's coming in to sing and you want to try out 3 different microphones, set all 3 microphones up and go ahead and have them lines ran. So it'd be real quick. Just boom, boom, boom. ABC, test them out, see which one sounds the best, and keep it moving. Like they're not waiting for you to, let me open this case up and let me plug the tube box in and get the power supply warmed up and all that kind of stuff. No, man, you should have did that before they got there.
Yeah, no, that makes total sense, man. Total sense. And I agree with you on that. But no, I think overall between Pro Tools and between Studio One, these updates were both pretty solid, man. I think there was some pretty solid updates, and I think no matter which DAW you kind of rock with, I think it's a good good features there. Everybody's somewhat happy they can find something in there that kind of rocks with them. Now, some other news that dropped this week was actually yesterday, our time, depending on when you're watching this, could be 3 weeks from now, depending on 3 years from now. But as of time of recording, it was yesterday for us. Audiotonix acquired Slate Digital as a company. So they went in and bought it from Steven Slate. Decided to sell the company to this other company. And if you don't know much about Audiotonix, what does they got? I know they got SSL.
SSL, Allen and Heath, Digico, Calrec. There's several of them, man. It's a big conglomerate holding company, pretty much.
So that's going to be interesting to see what kind of comes from that partnership. They talk. I did a whole video on that. I do videos on everything. I did a whole video on that yesterday as well. You can check it on. I'll put that down in the description as well that you want to check if you want to check that out and look at that. But they went ahead and acquired that company. So Steven Slate, now he said that he's still actually gonna be the CEO of Slate Audio, which is a separate company than any of the than the Slate Digital. These are 2 separate companies. Like I got the Raven stuff here, and all of that, and the headphones, the VSX headphones. I got those. Yeah, I got those in there. So that's a separate company, you know what I'm saying, than Slate Digital. Slate Digital does the microphone. They did the interface. I don't think they're supporting it anymore. And the plugins, all of the Slate plugins that we...
That's interesting to me, man, because I would have thought that the microphone would have stayed over on the other side, because that's a very similar technology to the VSX headphones.
Right.
So that's definitely very interesting that the mic is now going to be somewhere else.
Well, I think it had to do with the timing of all of that, because if you know about, if you follow your Slate history, so Steven Slate started Steven Slate drums early, like, millennium. I'm talking like 2000, early 2000s. He was selling drum samples. And then he eventually, I'm not sure which came first. I think FGX was one of the first plugins that he did, and then that was when they created Slate Digital. He spent it off into a whole nother company to keep it separate, and then what they did with the Slate drums, they did the SSD drums, and then eventually they jumped into the game with Trigger, Trigger 2. So it was all about the drums. Slate Audio was, and then while he's scaling Slate Digital on the other side, he's doing all of the digital, the plugins, the VMR, the tape machine, all of that stuff that they were doing with that. And so somewhere in there they decided that the microphone and the interface was a good play because of the technology, the plugins that they were doing, and they can make them play together, like kind of like UAD type situation. I think that's what they was trying to merge, the hardware with the software, and they built that in and made that happen. And then he kept moving on the Slate Audio side and did the Raven console, which that's what I have here, and did the VXS, and I think we're on version 2 of the Raven console, is what we are. This is the MT2i, I think that's what it is. So I'm pretty sure he says that he's going to keep developing those. That he's still CEO of that company. He didn't sell that company. That wasn't part of the sale. He literally just sold the digital part where they do the plugins and the mic and used to be the interface. So we'll see what comes from that. But it does create an interesting conversation, I think, that I wanted to kind of segue into. Because all of these companies I think we've seen several mergers / acquisitions in like the last 6-7 months, like major companies, like merging. Like I think, let me see, I got something pulled up. Like Sweetwater, they were bought out.
They were purchased. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they were bought out by a private equity company called Providence Equity Partners. They were bought out. That was last year. That was last year in June. I thought that was a little bit more recent, but
and then the Fender acquisition of PreSonus was last year too, right?
No, yeah, that was November. That was November of last year. So you can see Fender, November 1st, 2021. Fender bought out PreSonus. So guitar company buys a hardware / DAW company. Go figure, And then this was also, I think, the latter part of last year or maybe early part of this year. Soundwide, you have, what is this? Native Instruments, Isotope, Brainworks.
Plug-in Alliance.
Yeah, Plug-in Alliance. Sound Stacks. They all merged. I don't know who bought out who. I don't know if Isotope was the principal proprietor's buyer. But either way, they all came together and merged into make one company. And then just so many other ones. Okay, that's back to our Pro Tools thing. But it's so many other ones that is that. What was that one we was talking about earlier? It was the because you do post stuff. It was the
Oh yeah, Acusonus. Meta bought them. So the company that owns Facebook, which technically is still Facebook. I don't know what the whole switch of the name was, but yeah, Meta bought Acusonus. So now that whole suite of plugins and everything they were doing over there is gone. Like they've completely done away with that. Only people that have it are people that already had it, and we only have it until the end of this year as far as support and availability, and then it's gonna be completely gone. So that software is done. That's a scary thing, man, when you think about it, man. That you could get so deep into using something and then another company could come in and buy it, and not only buy it and just kind of take over and make it better, but buy it and do away with it all together. So that for me was a crazy thing. Like they were able to just say, you know what, we're buying this and we're getting them rid of that. Whatever y'all was doing before, we're done with that. We're doing something completely different with it. And I hope that they're gonna take it and put it into Instagram Reels and Facebook Reels and stuff like that, because it would be nice to have like noise reduction and de-essing and all that kind of stuff built into when we're making Reels. Because I know as an audio person, man, that's one of the things I hate about doing Reels and stories and stuff, is that I can't tweak the audio. Like it is as raw as you could possibly get the audio to be, and it's just like, man, I hate this. But so I'm hoping that there's a turnaround with that coming.
Yeah, and then we also hope that that's not going to be the story with Slate Digital, that it eventually turns in, they kill support. But looking at their portfolio that they have,
but so here's something interesting. I just found this out as we're sitting here talking.
Okay,
the DigiGrid is owned by Audiotonix.
That's the people that do waves, right?
That was Wave, exactly. I thought that was, but DigiGrid apparently is kind of its own thing, and Waves is using that technology.
That's crazy.
For their plugins in Live Console. So
yeah,
I'm really curious now about stuff that's going on, because man, this company Audiotonix is kind of buying up some strategic partners here.
Yeah,
you can see the brands Allen Heath, Calrec, Digico, Clang Technologies, like those are sound devices. That's another big one I just found out about last night, that they own sound devices. So yeah, very interesting stuff going on over there, man.
Yeah, that's definitely interesting, because man, to think about like that, because imagine if with SoundGrid, has been doing that thing with Waves. Imagine Slate plugins built into SoundGrid, which, like you said, you got all these SoundGrid capable, mixers and broadcast stuff out there. Right. And then, they push out an update, and now you can pull in, virtual tape and all of those things like that, FGX and all of those plugins and VMR, and use them on sound. Those are some speculations as to what might happen. But as a CEO, I understand, like I've run multiple companies too, and have over the years. So I understand what it's like when you're running different companies, when you're running multiple companies, and you're trying to give your attention to this or give your attention to that, and trying to grow two big behemoth companies at the same time, and one is sprouting and growing while the other one is, because you can only put your attention on so many things,
right?
And so I get it, because I've been in that place too, where like I just recently walked away from being the director and running Loop Gospel. I did that for 8 years of my life, partnered with Loop Community to build up the whole gospel side of their company, and did that for, basically ran that business on that side of their business for years. And it came time for, the other things, the other ventures that I was building and growing into, they expanded beyond where I just needed to like cut stuff off of my plate. And so I can focus on that. So I get it. That's probably one of the places I would assume that probably Steven Slate falls into. He's like, yo, like, it's got a lesson, because not FGX, but the VXS and Raven consoles and stuff, man. That Slate Audio is just exploding over the last few years. So who knows where it's gonna go from here? But it does, like I said, it creates an interesting DW and Roland. That was the other one I was thinking about. I couldn't think of the other company that just recently merged. And it was DW. Roland bought DW. So it creates this thing of why
it's weird, man.
Yeah, why are we seeing all of our, because we see corporate mergers all the time in the corporate America and stuff like that. And I'm pretty sure it happens. There's a lot of discrete mergings and acquisitions that are happening all the time. But when you think about the music industry at large, like, why are so many of our companies merging or being acquired or selling off their, like Sweetwater, man, that's a huge company.
That was crazy. They basically the same thing that happened at Guitar Center. Like Sweetwater did the same thing.
Wow.
Outside holding company.
Yeah, man. It's just like, it's just something crazy to think about. Like, you never would imagine Sweetwater selling the company, or you never would imagine DW selling to a company like Roland. I mean, you can see it a little bit because they're starting to get into the drums and start to really, so we'll see what happens with that.
In my mind, though, like when I see that and having somewhat of a business mindset, I immediately think of 3 reasons why a company might sell. It's either, they want to grow into something much bigger. True. And, a bigger company can help with that. But then that brings us to, okay, what's the income like? Okay, we think they're making a lot of money, but maybe they're not making that much money to be able to do all the things they want to do, or even stay afloat. We're not talking about like even though technically they're small businesses, we're not talking about, Fortune 500 companies. We're talking about, companies that have employees, but they're still small. So are they able to even field all of that? They got employees that work in the offices, then they have reps that go out and sell the software, do all the demos, and you got people like us, content creators that they have to staff. So, all that kind of stuff. And then the third and last one that I think about is the owner possibly on their way out? Like, is this kind of their way of saying, you know what, I'm kind of done with this. I want to move on to something else. So let me get this company off to somebody else, be a part of that transition to make it a smooth transition. Yeah. But then the next thing you know, 6 months later, it's like, oh, I'm bowing out.
Like, what's your boy, Jeff Bezos just did that with Amazon recently. Like, he just legit walked away from Amazon. I mean, I think he's still on like the board of directors or something like that.
Right, but I mean, what is that? A Zoom call every 2 months?
Yeah, like... that's a token. That's like that's a token position that you done. But he ran that company for 25 years, man. You know what I'm saying? And so he's trying to get off into Blue Origin and space exploration and doing all of those things. It goes back to that whole thing, looking at, paralleling maybe like a Steven Slate with a Jeff Bezos, two total different tax brackets, I'm sure. But at the same time, like, the concept is there where, like, man, like, you're running one company, you got one company that's highly successful, but you got another one that's growing and it's getting bigger and that really needs your attention and your focus to get to where it needs to be, and deciding where you want to spend that time. Because I heard this quote the other day that messed up my whole line of thinking when it comes to like, money and business and all this thing like that. We've heard the mantra. This is the quote. He said, "We heard the mantra, time is money," right? We've lived by that. We've heard that. We say it all. Time is money, bro. Time is money. This dude he messed me up because this is what he said. He said, "I'm going to submit to you that time is not money." He said, "Attention is money." He's like, whatever you put your attention on is what's going to generate you money. We put our attention on things that generate income. So the more attention you give something, the more profitable it's going to become. So a lot of times CEOs, he talked about how they isolate themselves. So they insulate themselves. So you can't just call Jeff Bezos. You know what I mean? You can't call Elon Musk on his phone. You can't call Tim Cook. You know what I mean? And you can't email them. There's different filters and there's different things that keep people from accessing them. And I think he said, like, a lot of CEOs, they whitelist. The only time they actually get a call or a text from you is if you've been whitelisted on their phone. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's the only way you're going to get to them, because they only have a handful of people that can actually access them, because they know I need to keep my attention on this in order for it to grow. And I don't need all of these distractions. I don't need this going on. I don't need to be talking to 5,000 people every day, about this, then I'll never get anything done. But if I can isolate myself, to where I got an inner circle of people that I talk to and deal with on a day-to-day basis, that run and facilitate everything else that I push out, then I can put my attention on the things that's going to continue to be profitable. Yeah, so I think that's where people like Steven Slate and all of them kind of land with those type things. It's like, hey, you got to lighten your load, because I'm in that place in my life. I'm trying to lighten my load and get to where I can focus on, these one or two things on a day-to-day basis and building this. Right now, my main focus right now is gospel producers, and creating content. Those are the things that have the majority of my attention on a day-to-day basis, is doing that. So, because that's what's making me money. That's what's generating income. That's what's paying the bills. So I could see that, but it's just, and I think I would add another reason, and it's just a recent reason to why, your reason of 3, why, companies would do. I think the pandemic is something that hurt a lot of these companies as well, especially like hardware companies. When I think about Sweetwater, and which is surprising, even though they're a online retailer, you think they would be doing better. But I think the pandemic really hurt a lot of people's sales, hurt a lot of people's bottom lines, so to speak. And I, like you said, with the overhead that they have to run these businesses, keep marketing up, pay employees, pay content creators, pay developers to keep, developing out these plugins. And development, if you don't know, is expensive. Development is super expensive. To give you a quote, because I'm getting into plugin development, as you know, and it's expensive. Now I didn't pay this, but there was a developer that I talked to before I started working with Pro Drums and building that out and creating that. And I talked to him about creating this plugin for me, and this dude quoted me $65,000 to create this plugin. And he said it without blinking. Like, it was just like, I was like, so what's it going to cost, me to get this done? And he just said, oh, it's 65,000. That's the thing. But when you think about it, it makes sense, because of all of the time that has to go into development.
Yeah, and then like this could probably be another topic for us, maybe not now, but that gets into different pricing models. Like I've done a lot of studying and playing around with my pricing, and a lot of people like that start to get into value-based pricing, because what they look at is not only the time it's going to take them to create the app for you, then you probably have some maintenance, which I'm sure there's a maintenance fee, an ongoing kind of retainer that you have to pay if you want them to keep managing it for you. And but updates. Then it's a matter of, okay, I make this for you, you're going to turn around and use it for X, and you're going to make X amount of dollars off of that. So in my one little design, you're going to make so much money. Yeah. So that's when they start to say, okay, wait a minute. If I'm going to make something for you that's going to potentially turn into hundreds of thousands of dollars, then I need to get paid a decent amount of money to create that for you. The same thing with web design. It's like, people think $500 or $1,000 is expensive for a website design. Well, guess what? Them corporate websites, they're paying $60, $70, $100,000 for a Nike website, which looks like something very simple and basic, but on the back end, you don't know what kind of craziness is going on to maintain a site like that.
Yeah, you're talking seven figures. Like, I've been a part of companies that we've worked on development, and we've worked on web dev and stuff. And I know I won't put the company's names out there or anything like that, just out of, for, information disclosures. But they put seven figures into developing a plugin, seven figures into developing an app, seven figures into developing out the framework for the websites and different things like that. So it's a thing. And I can even talk to I bootstrap a lot of the stuff that I do and do it all myself. But it takes months and years of your time to perfect frameworks, to perfect, like Pro Drums. When I did Pro Drums, that product took almost a year to complete. You know what I mean? And I got like 3 other plugins, that I'm working on right now. And I'm hoping that we're almost done with one of them. And I got 2 more in the pipeline that I'm trying to get done by end of first quarter 2023. But it takes time and development and testing and coding, all of which costs money. And cost the developer. Like, every time you have to update your plugin or update like your software or fix a bug, you have to pay the developer for that time that's going to take, because you may think, oh, this is just a simple little bug. Like, I think you were talking about Pro Tools earlier. Like, it's got there's a couple of little bugs and stuff that they have to squash, and little things like you click this and this messes up, or this is little things like that we think is so simple in our mind would take like weeks for them to fix. You know what I'm saying? Of just going in and dealing with all of the code and dealing with all of the stuff, and you fix one thing and it breaks another. You know what I'm saying? So it's like it's whack-a-mole. You know what I mean? And then, not to mention that you have companies like Apple that update their OS every year. Gosh. And so it's almost like you got to give the developers and you got to give these plugin companies a little bit of a break, because they have a lot of overhead, and they have a lot of things to kind of think about. Like let's just use that $65,000 number. I don't know. This is probably not a true case, but let's just use that as a baseline. What if every time Isotope or every time Waves needed to do a minor update to their plugin, it cost them $60,000? I mean, put yourself in that company's shoes. Like if you were running that company and you had to update your software, and it's just to fix this one thing, or just to make sure it's compatible for Ventura or Monterey.
Man, see, that's gonna transition us to our next topic, because I'm already in there about like where this leads to, because now you start talking about, okay, make it compatible for X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
Well, what about Johnny that's still running Mac OS 10 point whatever from 12 years ago?
Always.
Like, how do we support him?
Exactly.
We can't.
Yeah.
Like, there's no possible way.
But that's pretty much all we got for this week. I know we kind of loaded in. We loaded in a few, new things, and then we kind of went off on a tangent. You know what I'm saying? Talking about plugins. I didn't mean to go in that deep.
Talking about that crack.
I didn't mean to go in that deep, but we went there. But we'll make it happen. But we appreciate you guys hanging out with your boys. We're gonna try to keep this up once a week at least, and try to have some conversations and talk about all things related to our industry and production and mixing and mastering. So it's your boy John Mike. I'm signing off. My man Dale, thank you for joining me today, man, and having this conversation. And we will talk to you guys on the next one. We out. Holla at your boy.